Hey guys, welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. It's our first show in the new year. Rob, Happy New Year and Happy New Year to our Sports with Mono and Mono community. We thank you for your loyal support, and this is going to be a big year for us. So, Happy New
Happy
Year
New
to
Year.
all. So, Rob, it's January 7th, 2023, and Steve is unfortunately not with us again this week because he's still recovering from his let's say medical condition, but it's all fine. He's going to be good, and he continues to make sure we say thanks to our loyal listeners for his speedy recovery, and he's going to be fine, and hopefully he'll be back with us next week. So, Rob, our monologue this week is, as of always, is sponsored by Coriano Trucking of Summer Hill, New York, and we continuously thank them for their support. And now it's 2023, and they'll support us again for the rest of the year. Rob, so our monologue this week, of course, um, something that was unprecedented in the world of sports, seeing something like this happen. The Damar Hamlin situation on Monday Night Football, one of the probably the biggest audience that the NFL gets every weekend, and it was shocking. There was no question about it. It was shocking, and there's so much more to life than just football, but it happened on a football field, and we all saw it, and like I said, it was a devastating thing to see happen, and it brings up the question about this is a very violent sport. I mean, I played it, and Steve played it, and you probably played it, and um, you never expect something like this to happen, but it was a great thing to see the not only just the football community and his teammates, and Steve and I talked about um, the camaraderie and the bonding of a football team and how much they mean to each other. And listen, first of all, the good news is I think this kid's going to be okay. And he's starting to recover. They removed the breathing tube and he's actually communicating. So, first and foremost, you have to give all the credit in the world to those medical people that ran on that field and actually brought this guy back to life. And that's just, those are the heroes in life, right? Not football players.
hmm
It's the people that save lives, and they jumped in a critical situation, and it was just absolutely amazing. And this young man owes his life to those folks, and also, the way it was handled in Cincinnati, and Cincinnati University of Cincinnati Medical Center, I think it was, but amazing, and he's going to be okay. And again, Rob, we look at this week after week, and we see the concussions, and we saw what happened to Tua Tagovailoa, this year, and concussions is so prevalent in this violent sport, but it's a sport that we love, and thank goodness this was a kind of a one-time thing. And I was going to bring this up later on because there's only one other incident in the National Football League where actually a player, and his name was Chuck Hughes, back in 1970, playing for the Detroit Lions, and he actually died on the field. And, that was shocking itself. And now, 50 some odd years later, we saw the same incident right on live TV. But the way people supported this kid, and let me tell you something, this Damar Hamlin, he's a good kid, and he does a lot for his community. He went to University of Pittsburgh, and just look at the support that was given with this GoFundMe page that he had, millions of dollars. And you know what? Life is more important than football, and that's what we talk about, and we love it, and I played it, and I love it. But you know what? Unfortunately, sometimes things like this are going to happen. But you know what? This turned out to be a good story, and I'm so happy that this kid's going to recover. And It really is amazing. And I'd love to hear from you folks and send some comments or send us an email at sportswithmono@gmail.com and let us know, your thoughts on how that impacted you watching it on live TV. But the good news is he's going to be okay, and the game will go on. Right? Are you watching it, Rob?
Yeah.
Right?
I tell you, there's one thing it reminds me of is that I forget who this person is. He's a pretty prominent sports figure. I can't figure where I've heard this, but they said football will be over in 20 years. And I think this is what they're talking about, is that it's too violent of a sport. As much money as they're making, it's doing too much damage to these players. And they say within 20 years, football will be non-existent. Makes you wonder about that.
Well, that's something. It's not just football. I mean, sports itself is a violent game. It's competition against some of the most well-conditioned athletes in the world of their particular sports. And we talked about Pele, and I watched that Facebook 10-minute video of the violent nature of soccer back when he played. And, unfortunately, and what about hockey? I mean, these guys, crunch and slam each other into the wall. And again, this is a topic that's very, very dear to me, having played the game, and now I brought it up before. My grandson Logan is a 9-year-old, and he's playing football, and yes, it's a concern. But you know what? Overall, when you look at it, it's like getting struck by lightning. I mean, it doesn't happen that often, and it's a risk that you have to consider. But overall, the percentages, it's people just die in restaurants and have a heart attack too. And I'm not minimizing it, and it's a sport, but I just don't see that sport going away in 20 years. So I don't know where that theory came from. It's the spirit of competition in the human being, and football will be with us, and hopefully we never see what we saw again.
Well, I'm gonna make a wild prediction. This is gonna lead the Buffalo Bills to win their first ever Super Bowl.
Well, listen,
they're gonna rally around this kid and be that one push they need to get over beating Kansas City, and like I keep saying, greatest Super Bowl we could ever have is Buffalo versus Minnesota, and it's out there. It's possible.
Well, that's because that means somebody has to win their first Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
right. You know what? But that would be the Cinderella story that Buffalo rallies behind Damar Hamlin and wins that Super Bowl. And listen, we all thought they were absolutely one of the top 2 or 3 teams that could win this year. And you're right. Let's see. This is a big test for Josh Allen and his teammates if they could pull this off. It really would be a fitting end to a tragic story.
Exactly.
So, Rob, let's talk about football, and let's stay with football for a little bit. And I wanted to talk about the NCAA. Right, we're down to the championship game, TCU versus Georgia. And if you didn't watch the 2 semifinal games last week, TCU beat Michigan, and unfortunately, Ohio State lost to Georgia, but TCU beats Michigan. And you know what? I saw this comparison they put on. TCU's only a college of like 10,000 people. Michigan's got 50,000. And
wow.
This is a big Cinderella story. And Steve's been on, I'll give him some credit because he's been on this TCU bandwagon all year long. And I've been on the Georgia bandwagon all year long because they just look like a professional football team, and Stetson Bennett just seems totally in command of that offense. I think Kirby Smart's one of the best coaches in the game right now. I mean, you put Saban, you put him, right? That's 1-2. So the games were great. They were unbelievably close, and I got to give TCU credit. And you know what? In the final against Georgia, this is a big, big test. And Max Duggan, Heisman Trophy finalist, has been amazing. But they're playing against just an unbelievably almost NFL-like team. So I'm going to go with Georgia in this game. But I'm not, I think it's 12 points, right? You're the point spread guy, not me. But
I don't bet sports.
Huh?
I don't bet sports.
Good.
I'll look
can't
now.
win. But I want your thoughts on the game because I'm going to think Georgia's going to win this, but it's not going to be a blowout. So TCU has got a lot of momentum going on, and that wide receiver. Listen, we'll be talking about the draft soon enough. But this kid Quentin Johnson, he reminded me of was it Calvin Williams, right? That big, strong guy, and he showed up, played a great game. And I wanted to give a shout out to Luke Whippler, who Rob will talk about this near the end of the show, but we're looking to have Luke on starting center for Ohio State, and he played an unbelievable game, controlling probably the number one pick, this kid Jalen Carter for Georgia. What a great game he played. But this is what football is all about in college football, and now we're down to the final two, and I'm going to take Georgia, but I'm thinking TCU is going to hang in there. What are your thoughts?
Unfortunately, I missed both games last week because it was New Year's Eve and I was busy.
So
I missed both of them. But, from what I understand, they were great games. And look at the scores, they both came down to the wire.
They're unbelievable games. Unbelievable.
So if you were sitting home on New Year's Eve with a couple drinks, that was the perfect thing to do was watch football last week.
Good.
But I'm always for the the underdog, so I'll be rooting for TCU pretty hard.
Yeah, it would be really a great story. And Steve's been, like I said, he's been touting Sonny Dykes for a long time, and now he's got them in a position to win a national championship, which would be unbelievable. But I can't wait to that. The game's Monday night and prime time. Hopefully there are no incidents and stuff, but there was something funny that apparently they're not allowing tailgating at the national championship game, which seems almost anti-American, to be honest with you. I'm not sure what that's all about, but looking forward to that game, and we're going to talk about it next week, and hopefully we have Luke on to talk about it. The guy was literally on the field playing in, some of the biggest college football games there are. But Rob, a couple other quick things I wanted to bring up in NCAA football, because this is, we saw Michigan lose again. Jim Harbaugh is now 0-7 in his last bowl games, which is hard to believe. But now there's a big stigma. There's some recruiting violations and all kinds of the NCAA sanctions that they're facing. So you know what that means, Rob? That means he's packing his bags and he's going to the NFL.
He's running.
And I don't know where he's going to end up. It's either going to be Carolina or Denver, which I think Denver may be a fit for him that makes sense, but he's going to leave all that dirty laundry in the background when he leaves, but he's leaving. And 0-7, listen, the Michigan faithful must be saying to themselves, this is unacceptable anyway. He did get him to the Final Four, but you know what? He's going to leave a stain before he leaves, but he's going to the NFL. And one other quick point, Robin, because it's a topic we've talked about almost every week for the past 6 months, this, the NIL thing, right? And the transfer portal in college football. You could basically go wherever you want. But this was a big thing, and this is a guy Steve and I have had our eye on for a couple of years now. This Sam Hartman from Wake Forest. He's actually just announced he's going to and transfer to Notre Dame for his final season, and that's big news because their starting quarterback Drew Pine entered the transfer portal, and he's leaving. And Buckner, I'm not sure what his status is. He says he's coming back to play. for Notre Dame and compete for that job, but they're not bringing Sam Hartman to Notre Dame to sit on the bench. You can rest assured of that. And this guy's going to be a future NFL quarterback too.
Well, Buckner's got a bit of a predicament because if he stays the year and waits 1 year for Hartman to do his thing,
yeah,
who's right behind him? C.J. Carr, 5-star quarterback, grandson of Lloyd Carr of Michigan fame.
Okay.
And that's the kind of guy C.J. Carr looks like who would start right away. So we'll see what Buckner. I mean, that's why it's sad, and I guess it's sad and it's good, right? Because it's sad that you don't really have these 4-year players anymore because they get 2 years, they bowl, they do this, they bowl. But hey, but you know what? I think Drew Pine ended up in Arizona State.
He did,
and I'm sure Buckner will he'll get a chance. I mean, he led us to a victory in the bowl game.
Right. And listen, Notre Dame bounced back. You know, they 9-4 season after a 3-3 start was pretty good in the Marcus Freeman era.
And what I'm reading is Sam Hartman is going to lead us. He's that quarterback you need to get into the Big Four. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's been a while since Notre Dame's been, kind of knocking on the door of a national championship, and then the whole Brian Kelly thing and everything. But anyway, so let's move on to the professional ranks of the National Football League. And you have a nice little hat on today. That's a little surprising from a Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
I still like both teams. I mean, I get crap for it, but
All right, Rob. So let's talk where we are. And again, there's this uncertainty, and I don't understand the backstory of how they're going to figure this out because they're not going to play the Bills-Bengals game over again. So there's some things with coin flips about, how they figure out who's going to play where, and discussions about playing the championship game at some neutral site, which, if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, you're going, wait a minute, we're leading the AFC here, and, we're going to lose a coin flip and have to play this game on the road. It's something that's going to be discussed. And, Roger Goodell and his $48 million salary has got something to figure out because, the business side of the NFL is what Roger Goodell is all about, So let's see how that plays out. Do you know any of the backstory about, how this is supposed to work based on winning percentage or something like
that? They should have gone with their other idea was to add an 8th team in each conference to kind of even it out a little bit. That way, 2 teams would have had a bye, which would have helped out because, it's unfair for Buffalo because, hey, were they guaranteed to beat the Bengals? No. Are they guaranteed to beat the Patriots this weekend? Probably, but that's another story. But there was no guarantee that, either team was going to lose, and Buffalo owns a tiebreaker over Kansas City. They beat them outright.
Yep.
And then there's in a scenario where the Bengals win their division, yet Baltimore still gets a home playoff game. I don't know. It is
it's a little confusing. But anyway, that's you're right. Buffalo is going to be highly motivated, so they're going to take care of business this weekend, and we'll see how it pans out. There's a couple Saturday games today, right? Last week, week 18 of the NFL season. So
one thing I haven't seen, like, where is this neutral site going to be? Have they announced the location yet? If it comes to that,
not that I know of. No,
could be MetLife, right?
Yeah. So, Rob, let's talk about a couple of things, right? As you know, and I feel very confident in discussing the New York Giants making the playoffs. And, I can't find all the Daniel Jones bashers that have been harassing me for a couple of years.
Oh, I still have one on my tail every week.
Okay, but I'm not putting him in the Hall of Fame, but I'm saying what a difference a coach makes in the National Football League. And Brian Daboll's done an unbelievable job. And I'm just so happy for Daniel Jones. let's not look forward right now. Let's talk about the season that he's had, and he has shown that he can be a leader. Unlike Zach Wilson and the Jets, which is a whole nother story, and I want to talk about that in a second as well. But what a difference a coach makes in this league, and he's done a great job with Daniel Jones. Listen, the Giants are not going to win the Super Bowl. I get that. And they're on the right track, though. They're moving in the right direction after the McAdoo and the Shermer disaster, regimes. So I'm happy for him. And, I don't know, we always talk about resting players, and I don't know if they're going to do that. I don't think that's a Brian Dable characteristic. He's going to play these kids tomorrow, even if he plays Jones the first half. He wants this win, and because it's motivation going into the playoffs. I don't know who they're going to play yet, but I'll have my Daniel Jones jersey on tomorrow. I can tell you that.
I'll tell you what. The only thing that really, I wish we were a little bit stronger of a team, only because this is the perfect revenge for a couple of years ago when the Eagles sat whoever it was and purposely lost the game to the Redskins, or whoever it was, so we didn't make the playoffs.
It might have been Nick Foles or something.
Right? Was it somebody? They purposely sat somebody. This is the perfect revenge, because if we beat the Eagles, bye-bye NFC East, they're going from a 1 to a 5 seed. But I don't think we're in a position yet to do that where, and the Cowboys still have to win, but but it's a perfect scenario where we get revenge over a couple of years ago, but they did to us, and now we can get right back to them and knock them out of the top perch. Yeah, but we'll see. You never know.
Yeah,
we have a lot more confidence now than we had last time.
Yep, and as they say in the NFL, that's why they play the game, right? I don't think Hurts is going to play, but I wanted to talk about the Jets for a quick second because, it's so funny, and Jet fans are so fickle, and they had a right to be very optimistic when they were 7-4, and I'm saying easy. Your quarterback situation is an absolute mess. Excuse me, my little winter cough here. And I'm not sure Robert Saleh is the right guy. And Steve and I talked about this during the week. It would be a shocking and a bold move, but if the Jets really want to turn this franchise around, Sean Payton is sitting out there. And I know he's having conversations with Jerry Jones now, because it seems like if he's coming out of retirement, which he's going to be, he's a coach, and it's a passion that just can't go away with this guy. If I'm the New York Jets, I make an offer to Sean Payton and say, you know what? This is a guy, he's a proven winner. He's played in these stadiums before. It would be a bold move. I just don't think Robert Saleh is that head coaching guy that could lead the Jets into the next, couple of seasons. That would be something. If I'm a Jet fan, I'd be hoping and thinking, let's make an offer with this guy, because they got a lot of talent on this team, right? And there's still talk about maybe Lamar Jackson to New York, but I was starting to think, right? He's not that prolific passer, right? He's a running quarterback. He's a dynamic player, but you got guys like Garrett Wilson that you brought in, and he could get lost in a Lamar Jackson scenario. But is Mike White the answer? No. Is Zach Wilson the answer? No. I think Sean Payton would be a smart move for the Jets to at least make a play for him.
Yeah, but Sean Payton wants a quarterback in place, and they don't have that yet.
Yeah, but he's won games with Taysom Hill and those things. He's a football guy, and he could take the talent around him and build on it. I think it would be a good move.
The only way I see that happening is if you bring Derek Carr in too, and he's your quarterback for the next 3-4 years.
Oh God! You know what? Again, it's so funny you brought that up, because I've been a Derek Carr, a basher for years, and now they finally realize he's not going to lead the Raiders to a championship. And you know what? that probably could happen in New York. They could bring him in. I just
I
don't
don't
know
think
how
he's
much.
the issue, though. I think he said bad coaches. That coach last year should have stayed.
Yeah, I know.
That Bashir, whatever his name was, he should have stayed. It's
Well,
an idiot owner who wants the big name thing that's going to draw people in. No, idiot, winning draws people in.
yeah, I know. But you know what? That's a good point you just brought up, Rob, because I think that's a high probability that Derek Carr could end up with the Jets. I really do.
The job he wants is Seattle. No, I'm sorry, the Chargers. He's not getting the Chargers because the guy's in the playoffs this year.
Oh no, he's not getting the Chargers job.
It's either the job he wants, though.
It's either going to be the Dallas Cowboys or the New York Jets. That's what Sean Payton.
Well, the Cowboys losing round one of the playoffs. McCarthy's gone, so
McCarthy's gone either way if they don't win the Super Bowl. That's a foregone.
Well, he's got there, yeah.
So there's games today, there's games tomorrow, and it's going to finalize the playoff picture. I think what's it, Tennessee tonight against Jacksonville, and that's kind of been a disappointing team for me this year, the Tennessee Titans. I know Tannehill's out, but I don't think he was the foundation of that team anyway. It's Derrick Henry. But we'll get into our picks in a little bit, and I know who I'm liking there. But Rob, before we move on,
I'm hearing that next season, Derrick Henry and Tannehill are gone. Well, that team.
I can't see Derrick Henry going. Vrabel's not going to let him go. He's not going to let him go. But Rob, before we move off the NFL, and this is a topic I certainly wish Steve was here because, when we talk about Hall of Fame, we're very stringent from a criteria perspective, sports host. But the Hall of Fame nominees are up, and there's a few guys. If we went down this list, when Steve and I bring up a name about Hall of Fame, we could answer that question in 0.2 seconds, yes or no, right? So there's 4 guys that I just went down the list and I said yes, without even thinking about it, right? One was Joe Thomas from the Cleveland Browns. Again, the standard bearer for a tackle in the National Football League for me has always been Anthony Munoz. And he's not Anthony Munoz, but he's pretty close. And when I saw that name, and I guarantee it, and I'll talk to Steve about this during the week. When we brought up Joe Thomas, he'd say yes. Next. And next would be Darrelle Revis. And as soon as that name came up, I said yes. He bounced around a couple of times at the end of his career. But for the New York Jets, he was a Hall of Fame cornerback, and I have no problem with him getting in. Next guy, Dwight Freeney. And I know a lot of people maybe don't even know who Dwight Freeney is.
Colts.
I know. He played for the Colts, but he also played for like 4 other teams at the end of his career. But that time he had with the Colts, he was an absolute wrecking ball on the field. And I have no problem at all with him in the Hall of Fame. And the one last guy, and I know Steve would say yes, and I would say, give me a minute to think about it. DeMarcus Ware. And I know Steve talked about this on the show, a year ago. He's just a guy to me, I'd say, you know what? Maybe, but not right now, not first ballot kind of thing. And, we look at it and we talk and say, but Howie Long got in, which is a travesty, right? It took Joe Klecko, right, 20 years to get in. That's a travesty. So I think DeMarcus Ware, I had to scratch my head and think about that for a second. And I know Steve would have said, yes, move on. But those are my Hall of Famers. Do you disagree or with any of those? You rolled your eyes a little bit when I brought up Darrelle Revis.
No, Revis gets in more on reputation than anything else. Like, the guy couldn't tackle anybody for anything. But the way he shut down receivers, that's another thing. But as far as tackling anybody, Yeah. No, he should get in. He was good. He was a solid
Okay.
player. Joe Thomas is one of those guys that, one of those lunch pail lineman guys that if you know football, you know who he is.
Yeah.
Not a household name, but again, if you know the sport, you know how he had a real great career.
And he played on crappy teams and literally stood out as the best player on that team for 10 years. That's, to me, that's what a Hall of Famer is. You know?
Yeah.
What do you think about Dwight Freeney?
Probably not right away. Yeah, not a first ballot.
I think before DeMarcus Ware, I'd put Dwight Freeney in, but that's just me. Anyway, so those are our Hall of Fame selections, and like I said, the good news from as we move off the NFL is that DeMar Hamlin is going to be okay, right? So, couple other things, Rob. Let's talk Major League Baseball just for a moment or two. I don't know what's been going on in Boston. They've been getting rid of, they let Xander Bogaerts walk, and so then Rafael Devers was a guy that I think is an unbelievable player, and I'm not sure why the Yankees didn't make a play for this guy because he's a stud. But the Red Sox realized that they can't lose this. He's only 26 years old, and he's put up great numbers. So another one of those $300 million contracts that they're giving out like hors d'oeuvres in Major League Baseball.
Real quick,
Good
your grandson,
move, bad
is he a lefty or righty?
Huh?
Your grandson, is he a lefty or righty?
Righty.
If I ever had a grandson, I'm gonna from the day he's born, I'm gonna put his right hand behind his back, make him do everything with his left.
Exactly. We talked about this before. If you're a left-handed pitcher, you don't even have to be good. You just have to be left-handed. Yeah,
exactly.
I'd love that. Yeah, but they gave him a lot of money, so maybe $3 billion time for them. But I think that was a smart move. But again, $300 million contracts are standard now. It's crazy. And hold your World Series plans, Mets fans. They may not get Carlos Correa after all. So we were kind of joking about the San Francisco Giants, and they gave this kid a medical and said we're not paying him $300 million. So Steve Cohen jumps in, says we'll take him. And now they realize there's some sort of lingering issue with this guy, and I don't know what it is. And I've always told you, I don't think this guy is the Aaron Judge, gotta get this guy kind of thing. He's a 279 lifetime hitter. Has never driven in 100 runs. A very good player. But there's some stories behind this, and the medical thing, and he may not end up in Queens at all.
I hope they sign everybody because I know you and your brother are big Buck Showalter fans. The guy hasn't won anything. Give him a full all-star team, and when he loses in the first, second round, I can again say, I told you so.
Can't blame that on Buck. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, he doesn't win big games. But let him sign everybody. Let him get Brian Reynolds, too, as a fourth outfielder. I don't care. Let him get everybody over there. And when they don't win again, Well,
I think the Yankees are in this Brian Reynolds sweepstakes. So.
I don't know.
They have to do something because they haven't done anything. I mean, Carlos Rodon, okay, yeah, you signed a pitcher, great, but you still got a hole all over the infield, and
I think they're counting on the kids.
Yep. And Rob, quickly before we move off Major League Baseball, it was, my passion on this Trevor Bauer guy, right? So he was reinstated, and thank goodness, the Los Angeles Dodgers said, we don't want any part of you. So they let him walk. And I'm just hoping every one of the Major League Baseball teams take the same position, say, we don't want this kind of a person on our baseball team. I'll give you a Trevor Bauer update week after week, as long as he doesn't take a major league mound again.
Well, someone's gonna sign him. Who's it gonna be?
I don't know. But I hope nobody signs him. That's my point. So, Rob, couple other quick things. We'll touch on the NBA, and I'm happy to say, because I brought this up about 3 weeks ago, I said, you watch, the Nets are going to go on some run, right? They're going to win 12 out of 14 games, and they're hot as could be, right? No Kyrie Irving. They're just playing basketball. But you know what? And we talked about this, the young talent, right? Kevin Durant's still at the prime of his career and playing like it. And the young guns that are out there, there's just no defense in the National Basketball Association anymore. I mean, these guys have scored last night. I don't know who it was, either Clippers or somebody. The Raptors scored 51 points in the first quarter. I mean,
the Hornets against the Bucks of all teams.
Yeah, I mean, but listen, it's good for the NBA scoring 100 and we're seeing 152 to 148 games. It's like, really?
I think it has more to do with the schedule and players, just like thinking, all right, I'm tired. Let's outscore them today. Instead of stopping them, let's just.
I don't know. I don't find it appealing enough to sit down and watch a game from coast to coast. I'll watch the playoffs. We know what's going on. We know who the players are. So, but it's hard for me it doesn't seem exciting like college basketball does. And I know you're more into college basketball than the NBA. That's for sure.
I'm into that. I watch or listen to most Nets games. So
yeah. You got to give shout out to Rutgers. They knocked off the number 1 team for the second year in a row.
We beat them.
Okay, but Rutgers is pretty good, though.
What thing I say about the Nets, though?
Basketball.
What thing I say about the Nets, though, is that with this winning streak, what you're seeing from when all that early season turmoil with Kyrie Irving is, we will never sign this guy back. To now. Okay, the door's open again.
Oh, he's got a lifetime contract if he wants it. Yeah,
but like the small, I heard this on the radio yesterday, and I agree wholeheartedly. You have to give this guy he can have all the max money he wants, but it's got to be 1-year contracts. You can't tie this guy up.
Yeah,
because he's gonna go. Let him have his $35 million a year, but in a series of 1-year contracts.
Yeah. I don't know. Listen, somebody, like you said before, somebody will sign Trevor Bauer. Somebody will give Kyrie Irving a 5-year max deal.
Of course.
And real quick before we move on, right? The NHL, right? Listen, it's a good year to be a Rangers fan, good year to be a Devils fan, good year to be an Islanders fan. It's a good season in hockey. Rangers Devils matinee today at 1. Really should be a great game. And you know what I did notice, and I've been watching, I watched most of the Ranger games, right? The fighting has gone down substantially in the National Hockey League, which used to be, considering the 70s and the Broad Street Bullies. And there was just I don't advocate it, but I do think it's part of the game. And there was one of the great hockey fights that happened. It was Travis Frederick and Brendan Lemieux. Wow, I mean, this is what 70s hockey used to be like. These guys were throwing haymaker after haymaker, and they get 5 minutes. They get back on the ice 5 minutes later, and the game goes on. I thought it was funny to see. But the Rangers are looking good. And we'll talk more about it. Ovechkin.
So can you see that at all?
Huh? What's that?
I don't know if you can see it or not. So I have a new addiction where I go. I don't say addiction in a bad way, but I buy these lots of sports cards.
I know you do.
Right. So I did one yesterday, and it was intriguing because the guy was like, "Yeah, my niece bought an old house, and this box of cards was sitting there in the." And I go, I know nothing about sports. I negotiated a price with the guy. So one of the first cards I pulled was a top 79-80 scoring leaders NHL card: Marcel Dion, Wayne Gretzky, and Guy Lafleur.
Okay.
It's worth something, but that's the thrill for me is like you buy this stuff and yeah, 80% of it's crap, but there are some valuable stuff in there. I even have from yesterday. It's a 1980 Mets program, right? Lee Mazzilli's on the front of it, and I opened up to the scorers where the scorers thing would be, and lo and behold, there's 4 autographs. The 2 big ones, Dave Winfield and Ozzie Smith.
Hall of Famers.
I mean, I probably get nothing. You can't prove it's there with your signature, but I love this thing I'm doing, and you'll start seeing me making a show out of it.
Okay.
And eventually I want to get it where I buy something. Like yesterday, I was almost there, and live on camera, I'm gonna start pulling and see what's in the box.
Oh, no, listen.
So it's more of a surprise,
You're right to do it. If there's a buyer out there, go for it. I mean, this sports memorabilia thing, we've talked about it week after week.
There's a guy on there now. So last night lying in bed, and it's like he wanted $1,000. He's down to $800. He has 8 binders of NBA cards. One binder itself is all Michael Jordan.
Hey, listen,
there's gonna maybe not his rookie card. That's the holy grail, but $800 investment could possibly be $8,000 of cards.
Yeah,
it's just the overlay, but it's intriguing. But yeah, that's a little too much for me. But
hey, listen, those cards you got a Marcel Dion, a Guy Lafleur, and a Wayne Gretzky.
I mean, the problem is it's like they're not graded, most of them. So I'll you got to spend I'll figure out a way to make it entertaining and make some money on it on the side.
And
I'm not spending all the money to get it graded.
What does grading mean by the condition of the card?
I don't have one here, but they send it to a certain service, and the service certifies a 10, a 9, a 9.5, an 8.5.
Right, but based on what? Condition of the card?
Condition of the card and whatever their metrics are.
All right.
We'll see.
Hey.
Well, you mentioned hockey. I was like, hey, look at this. Wayne Gretzky. That's pretty.
Hey, that's the GOAT. That's a good one. That's a Jordan equivalent in basketball. Yep. So, Rob, let's move on to our random points of interest. Of course, sponsored by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut, who is, from what I understand, send us a video. I was going to put it up today. President Lynch of Lynch Toyota, they were skiing in Montana. And they sent me a video of a moose, literally a moose outside their back door that's in there. I've never seen a moose. And this thing was like literally, they were almost hand feeding it. It was pretty fun. But thanks to Lynch Toyota.
We get shocked. Well, we get shocked when we see a buck, right? 5-pointer, 8-pointer. Right. A moose is 3 times the size of that thing.
Oh, you should see the size of it. I actually had the video. It's so funny. But Rob, let's talk random points. And, we know what Monday is, right? In the National Football League. It's Black Monday, right? So there's going to be some changes. And, who do you see as being on the hot seat? Certainly, I think Robert Saleh should be on the hot seat. And Steve and I talked about this before. Either Mike LaFleur or Robert Saleh, somebody has to take the fall for this complete collapse. I just don't know who it should be, but I'm not going to be surprised if the Jets make that play for Peyton. But who do you see as who's a foregone conclusion, right? It's got to be Lovie Smith, right? Lovie Smith has got to be fired because he doesn't seem like he even cares one bit about being head coach in this league.
That franchise is all screwed up. They should have fired a guy last year. If you want a placeholder, the guy you had last year, let him stay another year. Why'd you fire him for?
Exactly.
I don't know who do they think is going to magically appear in their arms in Texas to be the Bill Parcells of the 2020s or something. But what are they doing down there?
I that's a good question. I don't know. You know, and if we look at guys like Pete Carroll, is Pete Carroll, not that Pete Carroll's going to get fired, but, you know, I think they need a change in Seattle. He rolled the dice, got rid of Russell, and said, Geno Smith's my guy. And Geno Smith was, you know,
Hell of a lot better than
3-1.
Russell was.
I know, but he's still Geno Smith, and he doesn't have the resume that Russell does. So I that's a possible change for me.
Jim, 1 second. I was reading yesterday. It was like the top 50 NFL free agents upcoming, and they had Geno Smith not too far behind Daniel Jones as a top quarterback. I mean, not right, Tom Brady, of course, but Geno Smith was not that far behind Daniel Jones, second and third in top quarterbacks available.
Rob, this goes to what I talked about before about, stop recycling these kind of guys and give these new kids a chance, right? We talked about Washington Commanders and Ron Rivera. Like, to start Carson Wentz in a must-win game last week knocked him out of the playoffs. And now they're gonna switch it and go to Sam Howell this week. So if Tyler Heineke's not your guy, then Tyler Heineke should go somewhere. But I think he's earned at least a chance to take this team forward. It's crazy to me. I don't know. I mean, we'll see what Black Monday holds for us, but there's going to be some heads that should be rolling. And Rob, I had this other thing about, and I mentioned it earlier, was Chuck Hughes when he passed. He died on the football field as a Detroit Lion. So I wanted to make sure that I did in fact mention that in the Damlin Hamlin monologue, because that was 1970, I think, or 71. And that was a tragic thing. And I wanted to make sure we brought him up, Rob, a random point of interest. And you're more the college, I'm going to say more the college basketball fan than I, because Steve and I both love college basketball. But they're thinking about expanding the March Madness to 90 teams. I mean, does that make sense to you? I mean, when it was 48, it was great. When it was 64, we said, okay, that seems a lot. 90 seems like, you're going to start getting teams that are, 11 and 19.
Let me argue that point for you against you. The college bowl season. There's too many bowl games, right?
There are.
To the fact where they had to implement a 5-7 team can make it if half. I don't know if you realize this. There are over 300 Division I basketball teams.
I'm aware.
So even 90 is still a third. So it's still big. It'll be great because everybody loves those little St. Peters of the world who come in and start knocking off the big guys.
I know that's what the intent is, to have that kind of a 16 seed beat a number 1 seed is always what you hope for, and sometimes it happens, or
even now the past couple of years they've done this playing game, and what's cool about it, it's not just the 16 playing a 16. They have the 11 playing the 11, which is an 11 can make a run in the right bracket. So it's not just bad teams playing bad teams. So if you start having some of these smaller teams playing each other, hey, you know what? That could be a small financial windfall for some of these smaller colleges to get some money and some notoriety that no one never heard of them.
Hey, the good thing is this could get my Niagara Purple Eagles in the tournament.
Exactly, right? There you go.
Right. So, Rob, a couple other quick things before we wrap up. This whole situation with the U.S. soccer coach, this guy Berhalter, very strange thing, right? Coming off the World Cup, and again, we never ever defend any kind of domestic incidents or something like that. But there seems to be more about it with this Reyna kid who didn't, get to play a lot in the World Cup and so forth. It's a strange thing. 50 years ago, something happened, and it's kind of a crazy.
Something where I heard, I don't know where I heard this
Yeah.
discussion. Maybe it was St. Mary's game. I don't know. They're both Jersey guys, right? Big families, big soccer families within Jersey, especially Raina.
Rainer.
So apparently his mother knew that Buckhalter, quote unquote, sexually assaulted his then girlfriend, who's now his wife,
No,
20-something years ago.
It wasn't a sexual assault. It was a domestic violence.
Domestic, something. I don't know. Yeah, but it was something that occurred a long time ago. Yeah, he's still married. He now married the woman since then.
Yeah.
And they're trying to use this dirt to say, because their son didn't play.
There's something in play there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one other quick thing, Rob, I wanted to give a shout out to former NFL player, University of Arkansas player Peyton Willis.
Hillis.
Yeah, Hillis. I'm sorry. This guy is as big as a house, but he's in critical condition after. Don't know all the details, but he had to rescue his children at the ocean or something. And I wanted to make sure we gave a shout out to somebody like that. And you and I talked about this, the Joe Delaney incident last week. We talked about it. So I hope he recovers. And, that's what a father does for his kids. And, football player or not, this is somebody that we wanted to recognize, and we wish all the best to Peyton Hillis. Yep.
Real quick. So that's the issue. One of the issues with Hamlin from Buffalo is that this guy may never play a down of football again, and he has not earned anywhere close to be earning a pension or anything. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So what's the NFL going to do in that situation? At least Peyton Hillis, had a decent little, wasn't a long career.
Sure.
But he had a couple big, he was relevant for a couple seasons.
Yep.
And he probably played long enough to get his pension. Now, Hamlin hasn't yet. Now, what do they do in that situation? He may need long-term care. They don't offer that. So, I mean, it's something to keep an eye on going forward with this kid. What they do for him, because obviously it's a tragic, not tragic, but it was a bad story. It's getting better by the day, but let's see what happens.
Listen, the NFL better not botch this and not support Hamlin's recovery and even Peyton Hillis.
I mean, even the guy from the Steelers, Ryan Shazier, a couple years ago.
Shazier, yeah.
They saw. I mean, the Pittsburgh did the right thing and paid his contract for 2 years. Even though he was nowhere near going to play football again. So hopefully there's something they can do to keep paying this kid somehow. And hey, who knows? He may still make a recovery and play.
Yep.
We'll see.
I hope so. I don't think he's going to play again. That's a trauma that's hard to overcome in that kind of a game. But Rob, couple of notable passings. Fred White, 67. Drummer for Earth, Wind, and Fire. We bring up notables from the world of music too, but Fred White, listen, that band was at the top of their game in the 70s, and
they're still on top. I play them when I'm DJing and people go nuts.
Yeah.
They're so relevant.
Oh, he was awesome drummer too. And one other, Rob, I guess we could consider him he was known as the father of modern officiating. Art McNally was literally the first referee that made a name for himself. And I remember, I know this goes way, way back, and I was pretty young, obviously, but I remember Art McNally refereeing football games in the early 1970s. And
I know the name, so yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah, he was 97 years old. He left the field of play and became like the head of officiating and literally he built the foundation for refereeing and in the National Football League. And I consider that a notable passing. He's the first referee to make the NFL Hall of Fame, and deservedly so. But I certainly wanted to recognize that. And Rob, one last thing before we move on. I wanted to give a shout out because one of our loyal listeners, Jim Walsh, has been with us since day one, and I haven't heard from Jim, and I'm glad that he's back and sent us an email at sportswithmono@gmail.com today, and he sends a good job to you and I for carrying on while Steve's been on the physically unable to perform list. But welcome back, Mr. Walsh, and even though you never left, it's great to hear from you. So, Rob, again, like I said, it's been a great week, and I appreciate you stepping in for Steve, and a nice hat you got going today. And we'll be back with you guys next week, and hopefully we'll have our first guest, and it should be exciting. I'm looking forward to it. And again, shout out to all of our loyal listeners, and thanks for the support, and we'll catch up to you guys next week.
Hey, Jim, real quick before we go, high school basketball. Your hometown Ramapo, big win this week.
Don Bosco beat St. Joe's last night handedly.
And then I got a big game on Monday. I got Saddle River Day visiting my St. Mary Gales. That's going to be a huge game. So looking forward to it.
Okay, good plug there. St. Joe's Bergen Catholic, January 31st in Montville.
Oh, boy.
All right, guys.
Have a good
Thanks,
day.
Rob. We'll see you guys next week.